Okay, good evening, everyone, and welcome to StartHuddle's Small Business Entrepreneurship panel. We are joined by three businesses and a few more business owners who we're going to hear their short stories and hear their experiences about being an entrepreneur and kind of management and what they bring to our community. So we have John Amato from Jute Mode, Ellen Zubek from Ellen Photo and Film, and Julia and Jessica from the Pickled Posy. I'll have each one of you guys introduce your guys' self and your business. We'll start with the Pickled Posy.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jessica, and I've actually been an artist selling my work online since 1999. So that probably ages me a little bit, but the Pickled Posy is kind of a newer branch of what I do, and that's about 2 years old. And this is my daughter, Julia.
I'm Julia. Yeah, I've kind of been along for the ride on that. We've just we kind of just dove into it, and it kind of took off because Mama already had a following from her previous business. So we've kind of just took that and run with it, and we've been adding to it.
Yeah,
along the years.
Yeah, so
it's been a really great experience.
We make handmade jewelry with real flowers that we preserve, and we put them in resin. So it's kind of out of the ordinary jewelry, kind of nature inspired. So yeah, we sell online only. We don't do any shows or anything like that. We're lucky enough to have enough of a following online where we just pretty much we sell out all the time as we release collections. So everything's one of a kind. We don't mass produce anything, which is nice. So.
Okay, Ellen.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ellen Zubek, and I'm a freelance photographer and videographer. This year, I've been transitioning into only videography, and eventually I will only offer video, but I still take photos kind of under the radar. I've started to slow down on advertising that, but I mainly do wedding films and then short documentary style content for small businesses and nonprofits. And I started this small business with photography and transitioned into videography because video is my first love. I went to film school in Chicago, and it just, I can dive into that story a little bit later, but that's how I got to what I'm doing right now. So, and I'm from Toledo. I moved back 3 years ago, and I'm loving it.
So I'm John Amato. I have a business in town. We're called Jute Mode. We do screen printing, embroidery, we do custom decoration for other local organizations. That's the bulk of our business. We also have a retail brand where we sell what most people know us for would be Toledo City Pride t-shirts. One of the most common shirts that people know us for says "You will do better in Toledo." But our retail brand, it focuses on the Midwest, Ohio, Michigan, and Toledo. We have two retail, yeah, Ellen's wearing one of our shirts. We have two retail stores in town. One's on Adams Street, which is where our main offices and production facility is. And then we also have a store at Cricket West. We have about 25 employees. I've been screen printing since 2012. Our office and retail store and production facilities on Adams Street, which is downtown. We own the building, we renovated it. And so we're happy to be in Toledo.
All right, cool. So we have really a wide array of services and products for our entrepreneurs: jewelry, photography and videography, and then screen printing. And I would love to hear kind of about the journeys of you becoming an entrepreneur. So maybe start us from the beginning of what college was like for you, kind of that transition of careers and where you guys got to today.
Would you like us to start?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll go first.
Yeah, I haven't gone to college yet.
She's 17, but I'm 46. So I went to the University of Toledo, and I started off in computers, I think, and realized right away that was not for me.
I think.
And I wound up as an art major, and it was right, they had just built that really neat wing off the Toledo Art Museum at that time. So I went to school there and I loved it. But I honestly really didn't know what I was going to do with art. And so I kind of, after college, went out into the workforce and kind of started some kind of beginner office type jobs, office administrator, that kind of thing. But I'm really grateful for that experience, even though it wasn't at all artistic, because I learned how businesses work. I worked for a couple different small businesses, and I saw how the payroll worked and how, you know, all the different aspects that come into play. So I kind of got a better education almost at work than I did in school for the business. But of course, the art learning was important too. But I worked for a couple different companies for a few years, and I just really always wanted to work for myself. Like, I would just sit there, my mind would plan, like, oh, I could start a business doing this and doing that. And so I don't know where exactly that comes from, other than I just knew I had to make it work. So I just kind of started off while I was working full time, painting and making art and learning how to do it. And my first website, I think I said in 1999, it was when we all still had dial-up AOL, and it was just, you know, the internet was pretty new, and I've just kind of watched it change so much because I've always had websites. And it's amazing now with social media. There was no social media back then at all. So that has now become my main marketing focus, is Facebook, really. I do some on Instagram too, but Facebook is better for me. So yeah, we do it out of our house. In the past, I've had 2 employees on payroll, but I really didn't like that because it's my house. So I kind of scaled back. Actually, I could probably sell more than I do now if I hired people, but I've kind of realized that I want to keep it how I'm comfortable. And I don't really want a store or anything like that, even though I know that would be fun in some ways. I really like doing everything from home, from a website. So I pulled her into it, taught her how to make the jewelry with me, and I'm kind of the main marketing person and all that. So we have a Facebook group. I actually have a Facebook page that's really big. It's got like 300,000 followers or so, but the reach on those has gotten so bad, I went off and started a group. And so that's really my main focus, is a Facebook group. It has about 9,000 people in there, mostly ladies, and they're just kind of really into the stuff that we make. And we've got some really awesome customers, but we just ship everything right from our front porch. The mail picks it up every day. And you know, but I have an LLC, and I've tried to do everything, be really organized. I have an accountant, because you don't ever want to have artists try to do their own accounting.
We're not good at math.
No, but you know, I guess if I could tell my younger self, it would be to look for more things like this, like what you guys are doing, because I really learned along the way and had no idea what I was doing at first. So I think it's awesome what you guys are doing here. And you can really, usually people like me that have been doing it for a while are happy to share what's worked and what hasn't. And we just love to talk about our business. So
yeah,
you know,
yeah, I love talking about it too. Like people, I have another job, and I talk about it sometimes, and people, like, when I show them pictures of the stuff we make, they're like, oh, I've never seen anything like that before. And it's a really cool feeling to kind of have like cultivated something of our own that's kind of unique and like personal to us. And it just kind of shows our love for like nature and jewelry and stuff like that.
That's really cool. And I think it's nice that you have that perspective of entering the internet and kind of social media before probably any of us, and seeing that development of that first page that has over 300,000. I don't think that would have ever happened today if you hadn't started it back then.
Absolutely. Yeah. How I marketed my stuff through my website at first before social media was so different than now. So it's all outdated and pointless to even describe, because it's not like it is anymore. But social media has been awesome. And I don't think I could actually make a living without it, really, because, you know, you have to constantly be reaching people and getting your stuff out there. So.
Alrighty. Let's hear from Ellen. Ellen, tell us a little bit about your journey probably from college and kind of maybe even the continuum of your business. So where you started out, where you are today, and kind of where you want to go as well.
Sure. So I was lucky when I was in school, when I was in high school, I knew kind of what I wanted to do from like, I mean, honestly, I knew what I wanted to do when I was like 5 years old. I've just always been holding a camera, wanting to hold my parents' camera and document. But by high school, I kind of knew like what that might look like for me. And so I was pretty set on going to a school that offered a production-based program, meaning instead of like film theory or film studies, it was hands-on right away, right when you start. And I also, while I love Toledo and Northwest Ohio, I really wanted to get out of the area, which I think a lot of people can relate to. No matter where you're from, you just need to expand those boundaries sometimes. So Chicago was my choice. I went to DePaul University, and my major was called digital cinema, which they've now changed it back to film and television, which is, I find interesting because there's no film, it's all digital now. But it was very hands-on. Like I had tons of experiences on sets right away my first year of school. And I'm really glad that I chose to do that because I realized halfway through it that the traditional set life was not for me. And while a lot of my classmates went on after graduation to go to LA or New York City to work in the film industry, like at studios or whatever, I felt like I was more called to tell real life stories. And so documentary was my kind of aha moment. I took a documentary class my junior year of college and felt like it like clicked. I felt like I finally had a name for what I like to do. Never actually had seen that many documentaries at that point, but it was just kind of like that style of like observational, raw and real storytelling that I was drawn to. And so after graduating college, I was in Chicago for a year and I was applying to jobs, and applying to jobs can be a full-time job itself. It's really tricky to do. And especially in a city like Chicago, there's an abundance of opportunity, but like nothing was really fitting and I wasn't getting a whole lot of bites. And while I was doing that, I was nannying and I was coming home to Toledo to take photos for people. So in between school years in college, I would come home to Toledo and take senior photos and family photos and engagement photos, just because people knew, like my immediate community knew that I had a nice camera and people believed in me and wanted to support me. And so people were asking me, can you take my senior pictures? So that's actually like how all of this has started. And while I was doing that year after college, I was like, I'm going home so much. Like I was booking so much in Toledo. And when my lease was up at the end of that year, I was like, okay, I don't know what I'm doing here. I need to move home. I need to figure out what I'm doing next. And if I'm going to move home, I'm going to really dive into this. I'm going to put a lot of my energy into it. I'm going to make a website. I'm going to, make, because at that point I didn't have like my business account. I only had a personal Instagram, and I'm going to make a business account. I'm going to like really dive into this. And so I did. And about 2 years into doing that, I was starting to feel like, but video is still like, this is obviously not what I want to do for the rest of my life. I enjoy doing it, but photography was starting to feel like less of a hobby. And so I wanted to work video into that. And so I started doing wedding videography. And the first wedding I ever did, I offered to do for free because I was like, I just need one under my belt so I can show people, here, I can do this. Hire me, please. And so I filmed one of my best friend's sister's wedding. And after that, I got like 5 inquiries for weddings next year. And it just kind of started to snowball. So that's where how I got to where I am today. Yeah.
Cool. And I like how it's always funny living in the Midwest, you're kind of always drawn back. And I think your videography kind of encompasses our Toledo community and kind of the homebody feel that we're trying to just kind of live our lifestyle. We live in a city, but it's not one of the biggest cities in the country. And it kind of, no matter kind of if you even go 10 miles, 15 miles, 20 miles out in the city, in the suburbs, you still kind of get that same feeling. All right, let's hear from John. Will you tell us about kind of the development of your business, since I think it's one of the larger ones here, and kind of where you guys started and where you are today?
So I grew up in Perrysburg and went to Central Catholic, and I left town for college as well. I went to Notre Dame, and then after I graduated from college, I spent some time in France. I had an internship in Paris, and after that, I moved home, and always thought I'd leave as well. And while I was home, I started my first business. I had an idea for kind of a high school networking website. And while I was doing that, I had an idea for a t-shirt. It was an Ohio State t-shirt. I think a few of you in this room are a little young, but if you're old enough to remember, if you're an Ohio State fan, the head coach in the early 2000s was Jim Tressel. He'd wear a sweater vest and a tie on the sidelines. And so I came up with the idea to make a shirt. When you put it on, it looked like you were wearing a sweater vest and tie. It's kind of like a tuxedo t-shirt for Ohio State. And it was licensed by Ohio State. And that's kind of how I got into t-shirts. And the business just started with one idea from there. Over time, I developed other concepts, more graphic t-shirts. I got licensed with Michigan, UT, and BG. And a few years later, I think about 4 or 5 years later, Jim Tressel, he left Ohio State University. And so when that happened, my business changed quite a bit, and I was forced to pivot. And for me, that meant screen printing t-shirts for other people. It was something that I wasn't doing. I wasn't handling the decoration myself. And so I taught myself how to screen print, bought some used equipment, found a small studio space. And the business has been growing quite a bit since then. I started screen printing. My first full year screen printing was 2013. So in that time, we've grown from me as a single employee to now we have about 25 full and part-time employees. The original studio space that we had, the print studio, was in Perrysburg. And a few years after we started hiring people, we grew out of it pretty quickly. And as I mentioned earlier, one of the most popular shirts that we sell says, "You will do better in Toledo." And we were printing shirts that said, "You will do better in Toledo" and Perrysburg. And so I figured maybe we should move to Toledo. And so we found a building in Toledo. It was a land bank building. It required a lot of renovations, but it was inexpensive, and it gave us room to grow. And so we've been there for about 4 years. Our business primarily has grown based on the custom side, screen printing for other people, whether it's schools, businesses, events, nonprofits, things like that. But this year, we're seeing a lot of growth with our direct to consumer. That's our in-store retail and then online. So that's an opportunity for us, and we're seeing a lot of changes to our business as a result of that. We're pretty active on social media. Our employees range anywhere from graphic design to finance, HR, sales, customer service, production. So we kind of have a range of employees there. I consider ourselves to be a fairly fast growing company. Up until this year, we were growing about 30% a year. We should still hopefully see a little bit of growth this year due to our retail business. But on a day-to-day basis, I manage production of screen printing. I oversee embroidery a little bit, which we do in-house, which is new for us about 2 years ago. And then I'm involved in a lot of marketing, as well as dabbling in the retail a little bit. So even though I suppose 25 people is a lot, we're a pretty flat organization, and I'm involved in a lot, I'd say, on a day-to-day basis.
Okay, we're gonna stick with you for our next question, John. And it is kind of,
Okay.
I know you elaborated a lot on your customer base, but how did you build a successful customer base? I know it started with OSU and kind of sports, but maybe could you touch on kind of your main sales and how that works? So maybe like the Pride t-shirts, and kind of, are your customers more just from Toledo, or when it comes to shipping, is it a lot of you're seeing Midwesterners try to get those Midwesterner products? And kind of that notion.
So on the direct to consumer side, our customer base has historically been local people in Northwest Ohio. And frankly, that's because we didn't do a very good job of marketing ourselves or advertising. We were at local events and things like that. And Toledo, as mentioned earlier, is kind of a smaller city. And we didn't reach too much beyond that with our retail brand. And so that's something that's changed a lot for us this year. We do have more of a focus on Midwesterner and Ohio themed apparel. And so that's gotten us out a lot more. We've used social media a lot. For us, social media doesn't really sell. Social media is more, I would classify it more for branding. We've gotten into Facebook ads, all sorts of paid ads, really. That's helped us a lot. Anytime you have a website, SEO is important, things like that. And so that's really what's paying off for us. We've also stumbled into a couple influencers on Instagram, which have been really helpful for us in reaching new people. And so our growth this year has been a lot more deliberate and intentional, in that we were actively pursuing other avenues for growth. And that for us primarily has been, it's been paid ads and then email. Email is really effective for us. The bigger side of our business is the custom business, and a lot of that's been relationship based. When I started, it was, I knew people in town, I would network, people would know my family, and then we would print shirts for them. We get referrals based off of that. And, I'm somewhat fortunate, I suppose, in that although screen printing in town, it's a fairly saturated business. There are a lot of different shops in town. We operate a little bit differently than other shops, at least in my opinion. Our value proposition was our customer service. It was our turnaround time, it was our quality. And so we did things a little bit differently, even though that doesn't sound too, that doesn't sound like much of a value proposition, but in our industry, it actually was. And that's why we've been able to grow so much. It's, at least in my opinion, it's because we provided value in ways that other shops just didn't. We just approached the business differently. Even just our social media and online presence for the custom side of the business is a little bit unique, certainly locally. And we have 3 outside sales reps now for our custom business. So a lot of our growth, acquiring new customers, comes from them getting out, making calls, emails. Our website draws a lot of referrals as well. And so kind of when we get people in the top of funnel, draw some awareness from social media maybe, or other PR efforts that we have, our website seems to do a good job of pushing people down and filling out our contact form. And we have 2 customer service reps as well that handle a lot of those requests. But, we've done, I think, we've had some good programs, especially in the last year, that have raised awareness locally in particular, and it's driven a lot of business for our custom side. And, quite a bit of what we do is a lot of old fashioned sales where we're pounding the pavement, knocking on doors, things like that. And we're fortunate that we're in an industry where basically everybody could use one of the services that we provide. Screen printed t-shirts are something that people need all the time. And we're lucky to be in an industry that is a commodity that, people want to use a local source, things like that. So there's a lot of growth potential for us, and we're hoping to keep moving forward in that way.
No, that's great. And Ellen, that looks a little bit different from you. People are not walking into a store because you don't have one. You provide a service. Will you talk a little bit about your customer base and maybe what marketing looks like towards you? Because it's going to be obviously a lot different because you provide a service.
Sure. So I feel like you'd think it would be a lot more social media and internet based, through my website, through my Facebook, but it really is word of mouth, I think. And because I started kind of doing it, I created this community, right? Like of people who were asking me to take their senior pictures. And so I went to Notre Dame Academy. All of my Notre Dame, like, 2 years after I graduated, I had friends who were graduating who they were asking me to take their senior pictures. So like I created this little community, this network of people. And I also have a very large family, lots of cousins. So my family is really supportive of what I do, and they're always thinking of me for any kind of, if there's a project that their friend has or their coworker is in need of a videographer or something, I always get an email from somebody. So it's a lot more about word of mouth for me, I think. And so because of that, I feel like I have to really, I think since, like you said, I don't have a storefront, it's a little bit more of a personal thing. People want to get to know me as a human being. And what makes me tick, because they're hiring me to be at their like wedding day, which is like unbelievably special, and I might be with them for 8 hours that day. So like they want to like me. So I think that's something that I've been thinking about a lot more recently, is like putting out an idea, or like however comfortable you feel sharing your personal experience and your personal life will help attract people who will want to work with you. In the creative photography and videography field, I think that's becoming more and more of a way that people get hired, especially because of social media. So like when you share on your story, or you share, I'm at a Metro Park, which is like, I'm always at Metro Parks and sharing, like, I'm walking on this trail, like people are like, oh, she likes to walk and go outside and she likes nature, like, and people might connect with that. And so it's a kind of half and half, but definitely more word of mouth and kind of just like personality. And yeah, I don't know if that makes sense, but.
No, 100% it does. Julia and Jessica, I know you guys mentioned, all of you have done a great job explaining kind of your marketing base and who you're reaching out to, but maybe what suggestions do you guys have for those who are wanting to sell a product? We're starting to see a lot of people who have great ideas, who are crafters and want to sell bath bombs or things from a young age. So looking at that, what is your suggestion for people who just want to start selling something, making money, whether that's just pure Facebook marketing or craft shows as well?
Definitely, I think starting out, you're going to probably want to do some shows. I definitely did at the beginning, to try to build up some momentum and, get some local customers. I do have some local customers, but I ship all over the world. So I would say, I think I'm more focused on that kind of like internet sales, but definitely local customers are great too, even if you work from home. We have some customers that will sometimes pick up their stuff if they're local instead of paying the shipping fee and everything like that. But for somebody just starting out with handmade, I would definitely say that there is value in handmade, and that our prices are a little higher compared to what you can go to the store and buy mass produced jewelry for, but people are willing to spend it because it's unique, and they know that they're getting a one of a kind piece. They're not going to see somebody else in it. And also, like she was saying about her photography work, we do share some personal things in our group. It kind of becomes more like part of your brand, and you do have to feel comfortable, I guess, enough sharing the personal stuff. I don't, there definitely is a line there that you want to find a happy medium, but that does help when you're selling a product like this. And then for somebody starting out young, there's Etsy, which is a nice, like, we have our own website, which I set up through Shopify. But that's because I have enough people that I can drive there. Etsy is a great place to start when you don't have a big base, because they have their own search engine people will go there and type in and all that. So I would say maybe give Etsy a shot to start off with, but they charge a lot of fees, so you might outgrow it like we did.
Yeah, kind of building off what Mom was saying, with the personal side of a business, like connecting with your customers. I think that's a really important aspect of it because I mean, I haven't really shared anything too personal through our business, but a lot of people shared their story with us. Part of our business is I do some embroidery work as well, like embroidery hoops mostly. And I remember one time there was this blind girl that would order our embroidery pieces because she could feel like the 3D like qualities of the embroidery hoops. And I just thought that was a really cool, almost like gift to give somebody, to be able to feel that and like just be able to share that with somebody.
Absolutely. Yeah. And one thing is that when you're selling a product, we're really big on packaging. We package everything really special, like tissue paper and, you know, cool stickers, and we tie little dried flowers on the ribbon, and anything you can do to kind of make people feel extra special coming back to you, set yourself apart. You know, like you said, bath bombs, kind of have a niche, find a niche in there, make your bath bombs different than somebody else's. That would be my advice to somebody starting out.
And I've ordered some of you guys' stuff for my mom before, and your packaging is 100% great. It is the coolest gift you give someone. We're going to kind of change moods of kind of the development of our business, but kind of talk about the challenges. And we got this question last night in kind of our Q&A session: what keeps you up at night as an entrepreneur? And last night a lot of it, I think most of you can contest to this, is comparison, confidence in your business starting out. But we'll start with you again, Jessica and Julia. What challenges have you had over the years, and what keeps you up at night as an entrepreneur?
For me personally, I've had to evolve. Yeah, I started off as a painter. I created paintings. I wasn't making jewelry at all. And I did really well with that for a while, but it kind of, you know, people decorate their home and then they have wall space, not very often, basically. And so I stumbled upon the jewelry and realized that's something that's more, you know, the same person will buy many pieces of jewelry. So that's just kind of to be, I guess, constantly coming up with new things. I have a solid customer base and they get bored with the same stuff all the time. So I'm always learning new things or putting a new spin on it to try to keep everybody excited about, including me, because it's when you get bored, it kind of reflects in your work. So I guess that's my thing. I know with the pandemic, I expected our sales to go down more than they did, but I guess because we're selling online, you know, it hasn't been that bad. But I think this is a good lesson for everybody, that you have to be ready to evolve and kind of not get too comfortable in one place. Be ready to kind of roll with the times.
For me, what Mom was saying before, like just adding off of what she was saying about always having like a niche, like to have people coming back and like try to set yourself apart from other businesses, because there's a lot of jewelry companies out there, everybody knows that, but like resin flower jewelry, there's not as many companies that do that. So it's kind of something that sets us apart from the other people. Mm-hmm. And even before I started working for my mom, she always made that pretty clear, like with anything I would do to like set myself apart somehow from other people and other competitors as well.
And Ellen, will you talk about those challenges and what keeps you up at night, but also they mentioned their kind of COVID response, and how has your business been adapting, and what does that look like for you as well?
I'll answer that one first. So I did not work for from March till June-ish. Well, March till May. I had not that many new things happening. Luckily, I never have nothing to do because I'm always catching up on editing. So that was a great time for me to get caught up on stuff. But starting, I think in July, I started to get kind of like slammed with stuff, which I was very surprised by. But I think it was just because of the June was a month of apprehension. People really weren't sure what was safe and what was not yet. And luckily, my busy season is already in the summer. because most of what I do happens outside. When that, especially like with like photo shoots, happen outside. But weddings have been kind of tricky. I had one completely cancel and one reschedule till next year. Luckily, as a videographer, I actually gained a few new clients because people had to restructure their day and weren't originally planning on hiring a videographer, but now since they didn't have, you know, as many guests coming, they had room in their budgets to hire a videographer, and then those people could see what their day was like. So I didn't take a huge hit, and I think that just what I provide, people still needed. So that wasn't too bad this year. I'm a little worried about winter. Winter's always slow for me. So we'll see what this year is like, just because I have my own reservations about going inside people's homes, and, you know, so we'll see what happens. I'm trying to remain hopeful. But what keeps me up at night? It's an interesting question, and I like that you're phrasing it that way, because something that I always say to people is, when you are a small business owner, or you run your own thing, or you work for yourself, you never, your brain doesn't shut off. That part of your brain never shuts off. You don't get to like come home at 5 o'clock and like stop working. So I feel like I'm always thinking about it. I've had to come up with ways to not think about it so I don't drive myself crazy. And I think what I've struggled most with is just like brand identity, and like, since I have gone through some changes and I started in photography and I want to do video, and it's like, what do I actually really want to do? And I think that's been my biggest challenge, is kind of just like figuring out what, like, if I need to zero in on one thing, if I'm only doing weddings, if I'm only doing, you know, just kind of stumbling through that whole process, which I'm still doing. I don't think I'll ever stop stumbling. So yeah, I lost my train of thought, but yeah, that's it.
No, that's perfect. John, tell us a little bit about the challenges that you guys face as Jute Mode. And yeah, exactly that, some challenges, and maybe not exactly, I think it's probably different since you have multiple people in your company of what keeps you up at night, but maybe what are some hesitancies in the future, also your COVID response?
You know, so for us this year, our B2B side took the biggest hit, and we're still recovering from that. We're performing a little bit better than we thought we would be at this point, but you know, when the pandemic really hit, stay-at-home order came into place, a lot of businesses weren't operating the same way they were, and they just didn't have a need for shirts in the same capacity. And schools were closed, dances weren't happening, sporting events weren't there. And so we lost a fair amount there. And so, you know, I think if you're going to survive at a time like this, there are a few things that you need to be. One of them is you just can be lucky. The other is you have to be creative. And a third is that you need to have some diversity in your business. And we're fortunate that we have some diversity in our business. We have a B2B side, meaning we're selling direct to other businesses. And then we are selling direct to consumers. And so Jessica mentioned it earlier, she sells online, and online sales were pretty strong this year. And our online sales were pretty weak prior to this year, but it was something that we managed to ramp up, and we're seeing pretty significant growth year over year with online sales, and it's carrying us into the holiday season as well. So we were lucky that we at least had a foundation there. The other thing that we did, we were in a unique position in that we worked with a lot of businesses in town. We decorate shirts ourselves, but we also sell shirts online. So we created a program called Here for Good. And with that program, we sold shirts for other businesses in town. We sold them for $20 online, $10 went back to that local organization, whatever it was. It could have been a charity, could have been a photographer, a salon, restaurant, bar. And so we started that in April, I believe, in April. And over the month and a half, 2 months that we ran it, we sold over 13,000 shirts. And so it generated a lot of money for a lot of local businesses during that time. And one of those was us as well. It kept us busy at a time when a lot of other screen print shops were slow. And so that was us being creative, and that was us, trying something new, and being hungry and feeling a little bit desperate and doing anything we could to keep things going. And it worked out really well for us. We also were pretty creative with our online business as well. We came out with a lot of shirts that benefited local causes that were helping healthcare workers, frontline workers during the pandemic. And so it generated business for us, not necessarily a lot because we're donating a lot back to charities at that time, but it helped get us through. And, our sales team has been good throughout this. And we've been able to bring our custom business back up to a more comfortable level, at least. So 2020, I think all the business owners here can attest to it. It's been unlike any other, and it's really been one where you find out what you're made of, and you gotta work hard. And it's probably been the most stressful year of my life, and I've probably worked harder than I thought I'd have to this year. But yeah, in my position, it's also the thing that keeps me up at night. It's I have 24 employees or so. And, I feel that I have a responsibility to them and to provide for them, to make sure that the business is going to survive. And we did have to furlough some people during that time. And that was a really difficult thing, and something that I never want to experience again. And even though it was very much out of my control, one of the challenges for me right now is just building a more bulletproof business, whether that's creating subscription models or diversity in the business, and expanding both sides. And so that's kind of one of the big takeaways for me, is that we need to really establish ourselves as a stronger, healthier business. And when you're growing a lot, when you're growing really fast, sometimes things feel a little out of control. And this year has centered us a little bit, and grounded us, and hopefully, going forward, we'll learn a lot and be stronger because of 2020.
Yeah, and I like what you said. It kind of this year reinforces and grounds every business, kind of gives you new perspectives of what's capable and what's possible, and what is best for your business. I kind of want to touch on an interesting topic, kind of the names of a few businesses. Ellen's, I know yours is kind of simple. It's just Ellen Zubek Photo and Film. But John, where did Jute Mode come up? What's the meaning behind the name, and who created it? Tell us the story.
So when I started the business, I told the story about the Jim Trestle sweater vest t-shirt earlier, and this is a question I get asked a lot. And unfortunately, it's too late to change the name of the business. But when I created the Jim Trestle sweater vest t-shirt, I knew I needed to be something else other than the Jim Trestle or Ohio State sweater vest t-shirt company. And so the process happened fairly quickly. I applied for a license in the spring, and then with production, I didn't get the shirts until the fall. But I had to make decisions quickly. I assumed that I wasn't going to get a license and that it wasn't going to happen. And so I really wasn't planning too much for it. And so when it happened, I had to fill out the application quickly. And this was the best name that I came up with. And it's a combination of a couple things. When my older brother was in 7th grade, my dad told him it was time to get a job. And a good thing to do for a 7th grader would be to start a lawn mowing business. And so my brother started a lawn mowing business, and he was working on a project on the planet Jupiter at the time, because he was in 7th grade. So he called it Jupiter Pro Lawn Care, and he ran it. I worked for him when he graduated high school. I took it over for him, and then our younger brother ran it. And so it was just one of those fun family businesses. And I think we had it for about 12 years, and it was kind of something that the first shirts we made were Jupiter Pro Lawn Care shirts. Our buddies worked for us. It was a lot of fun. And after college, I mentioned earlier, I had an internship in Paris after I graduated college, and the idea for the Trussell t-shirt came about 6 months later. And so the French word for fashion is mode. And so it's essentially Jupiter fashion. So that's what it is.
That's really cool. That's a complex of two different stories in your life kind of combining into one, but
Right.
I think it's a staple in Toledo apparel and fashion as well. Pickled Posy,
Yeah.
tell us about where that came about from.
Well, it's a newer company for me. My main company is called the Vintage Angel. That's so this is like a little umbrella, or a little offshoot of the bigger umbrella, I guess. But we were stumped. We were already making the jewelry, and my friend Jonna was trying to help me come up with names, and she came up with it, and I thought it was perfect. It was catchy. It was different. It wasn't taken, because you right away go and check, and you can't use it if somebody else is using it, of course. But posy is like a flower bouquet, and then pickled because we put them in resin, so it just fit, and we both liked it.
Yeah, and I thought it was really cute and kind of funky, so I was like,
yeah. So yeah, it's been a good name for us. It fits.
Yeah, definitely.
That's cool. I kind of want to talk about more of community-based. I know we've touched on this a little bit, but kind of what your business brings to our community, because we know economic development drives our suburban areas and also our city areas. So Jessica and Julia, what do you guys think that I think our area needs, Toledo needs, business-wise, and what do you think that your business provides, and kind of that need for economic development, but also just community development and entertaining the needs of consumers?
Well, I kind of wish and maybe someday we will do more locally, like have a little shop or something like that. Right now, I feel like we're just kind of like isolated out here, and we're shipping everywhere else. But opportunities like this to help other young artists that are like, anytime I get asked to give advice to a young artist, I'm always willing to do it, because I think it's important to share and encourage, and show them that you really can still make things with your hands, and people will want it. You can actually make a living doing it. And I think I would like to get more involved in that kind of support for younger people, and possibly someday I could see us having a little storefront, because I would like to do more locally.
Yeah, I can definitely see, like, after the pandemic and everything is over, like us having a little store or doing like maybe a couple of shows again, because we used to do shows like not after we had the Pickled Posy, but when we were just the Vintage Angel and mom was doing her own thing. I would like go to the shows to like help when I was littler, and it was a good experience growing up. But personally, I think something we bring to the community is kind of like our company's always just been about like happiness and joy and like peace, like never any like harsh messages or anything, just kind of like a good, peaceful, happy art kind of business. And it just brings a lot of like color and happiness and nature to everyone's lives, and I think it's a cool thing to give people.
Yeah, absolutely.
And especially if you're talking about like just storefront, I think Northwest Ohio is full of so many great streets and just uptown environments. You have Uptown Maumee, Waterville, Sylvania, and those are three strong just economic coalitions in themselves, and that are all built by a group of small businesses and restaurants. And Ellen, what do you think you bring to the community, and what do you think that Toledo still needs, or what do you want to develop? And I know you kind of work with Toledo creatives, and maybe you could explain that as well.
Sure. So yeah, when I first moved back to Toledo like 2.5 years ago, my first impression of the photography and videography kind of artist community was that it was kind of a guarded community. People were not unfriendly, but just maybe not willing to collaborate or open about wanting to work together. And that was my first impression. As I started to get to know a few other fellow creatives, I started to learn that like everybody kind of feels the same way, but everybody's too scared to do something about it because creative people tend to be introverted and afraid to kind of reach out to each other. And so Toledo Creatives is a venture that my friend Jake Weber, another local photographer, and I created this year in 2020. And we could not have done it at a better time. We started it literally in January, but it's really kicked off starting this summer. And I think the reason it has had success at all is because of the pandemic, actually, because that people were kind of starved for that connection, have been for a long time, but this was the perfect year to like actually put it into practice. So Toledo Creatives is essentially just a network. We have a Facebook group. The story behind it is that Jake and I were talking one day about how it would be great to have a creative co-working space. So co-working spaces exist in cities. There's one in downtown Toledo called Seed, but we were thinking of something that was geared towards creatives in general. So photographers, videographers, musicians, graphic designers, and it would be like a place for people to come. They would pay like a monthly fee and have a desk or have a space to work and essentially have coworkers. So we were talking about how working for yourself can be a lonely job when you're just sitting and editing for 6 hours a day and by yourself. And so that was just the background behind. We were like, how do we do this? Like, how can we make this happen? So in January, we had two, we called them roundtable discussions, where we just invited several of our creative friends and asked them to invite their friends to just talk about that idea and see what the community thought, and how we could move forward. So it's kind of morphed into this, we kind of settled on the idea that we need to cultivate the community first before people like can trust that we will like follow through on this creative space and it will like, so that's what we're doing right now. It's a network of creatives. We have monthly meetups and Zoom calls, and we've been doing that consistently since June. Each meetup is a little different. Since there's two other guys who run it too with me, and since all of the four of us are photographers and videographers, we're kind of struggling right now to come up with ways to include people who are not just photographers, because at our in-person meetups, it's always like people with cameras. That's a tangible way to it's like an icebreaker for creatives. Like, you have a camera? What camera do you have? So we're trying to figure out how to incorporate all kinds of artists and creatives into the in-person meetups, but the Facebook group has been an unbelievable source of information for me. And I think it's fun to watch people post in there and talk about, gear, talk about, there's a conversation in there today about tagging your location on your posts and how being straightforward with where you are is a really important business practice, like as a creative, like where do you reside? Like just talking people's opinions about that. So there's always just different conversations going on. Like, I wish I would have had this network immediately when I got back. I wish I would have been less shy and more willing to break out of my own head and bubble and approach people, because I've met so many friends, and I now, when I can't do a job or I'm not suited for the job, I have 10 people who I could recommend for the job. So it's a great network. And I think the Toledo creative community is also huge. Like, I keep meeting more and more people, and it makes me proud to be here from here. And yeah, so that's the Toledo Creatives.
John, what do you think your guys' role in Jute Mode is to developing the community, and what else do you think Toledo needs to focus on when it comes to small businesses and entrepreneurship? And yeah, kind of just that.
So we try to take a very active role in the community. It's something that has always been important to us. We were kind of there at the start where people were starting to be proud of the fact that they were from Toledo. That's where a lot of our Toledo City Pride shirts are that's what they're based in. And so, it's important for us that we connect with people that feel the same way. And I mentioned earlier this year, we did the Here for Good campaign. I think that's a good example of community. And it's hard to look around the city and not feel how special the community is here, especially during 2020. You've seen so many examples of people that have done good things to support people that were in need. So I personally believe that the Toledo community, it is really special. It is what makes Toledo such a great place to be. That's why I enjoy being here, even though, I fit into the camp where in high school I thought I'd never end up back here. And, I'm proud to be from Toledo. I'm proud of the people that live in Toledo and the good things that are happening here. And we're part of the creative community as well. And like Ellen said, it's a large community. And I find that the people here are very active and very invested in making Toledo a better place. We're on a really neat street. We're in Uptown Toledo on Adams Street, and there are a lot of fun bars and restaurants, and we're active with the events that are happening, the parades that are happening on our street, and that's a great thing to do. And we actually do still participate in events that are happening, whether it's at Handmade Toledo, Old West End Festival, things like that. And those are really fun events for us to be a part of. And it's still us connecting with our roots, because the first event I sold at was Old West End Fest. So it is fun to go back year after year. I'm a believer that if we've learned anything from 2020, it's that supporting local means more now than it ever has, and that people truly mean it now in a way that they didn't in the past, because they're seeing the impact of local businesses closing, and they feel the effect that has on their life and the change that it makes for them. And so we have had people come directly to us because we are a local business and they want to support us because of that. And that's a great feeling. We try to do as much business with local people as well and support them in any way possible. But it's definitely been different this year on both sides of our business, the B2B and the D2C, where people have been deliberate in saying, hey, you're Here for Good program made an impact. We want to support local as well. Or we need to make shirts for our essential employees and we want to use a local company to do that. Or whether it's people shopping online or in their store. There's definitely a difference this year from my experience that people are much more deliberate and intentional about supporting local businesses. And, I think that shows the strength of our local community, because especially with what we do, there are a lot of options. You can get custom screen printed t-shirts online. You can find Midwestern or Ohio or Michigan shirts from a number of different companies. And so people have choice, and, we're pretty happy that people make the choice to support us. And so, I'm encouraged by what's happening. And I hope to see that stay strong going forward. I think entrepreneurship is something that's important. But I think it mostly rests in small businesses. I don't know if it needs to be singular and that it's entrepreneurship on its own, but I think people running successful, healthy, small businesses is really important to the sustainability of the local community. And I think it's really neat to see people that, run their own business and make a really good lifestyle of it. And I also have a lot of admiration for businesses that have gone through the phases from being a one-person employee company and have grown to employ many people. I still feel that we're kind of in a gray area. We're not a big shop, we're not a small shop, and so things are still pretty challenging for us. And we hope to get to a more stable position sometime soon, or one where we have more structure and it doesn't feel as chaotic as it sometimes does. But local businesses, in my opinion, they care more about the local community, locally owned businesses, that is. They're more involved with the community. They're invested in their neighborhoods, and the other businesses in town, the businesses and people. And so that's where I see the value of local small businesses. I do think we definitely are seeing it more than ever right now, how important it is, because we are losing so many. Our restaurants, our bars, our gyms are closing, and we don't have the ability to go to those. And I think when you miss those for as long as we have, that you understand how important they are to your life, and how important it is to keep them around.
Yeah, 100%. So I'd just like to say thank you guys for joining us. That was really a good conversation, talking about really from marketing to community development, and when it comes to young entrepreneurs. So again, StartHuddle hosted this, our entrepreneurship panel. We hope to have more events like this, hearing stories from people who are selling things and offering services in our community. So again, we have Julia and Jessica Massacre from Pickled Posy, Ellen Zubek from Ellen Zubek Photo and Film, and John Amato from Jute Mode. Thank you all for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you for
Thank
having
you.
Thank you.